Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Tremors. This film tells the story of man-eating monsters that live underground and begin to terrorize all residents of the City of Perfection. Will the residents survive this deadly attack? Let's find out in Tremors. Tremors tells the story of two best friends named Val and Earl, who live in Perfection, a small town in the middle of the Nevada desert. There is only one access road from into the city because of the remoteness of the area. Val and Earl work odd jobs every day and earn wages by helping the residents. One day, they met a woman standing on the side of the road. They stopped and greeted the woman, who introduced herself as Rhonda. Rhonda is a student who is researching earthquake activity that occurs in the area. Rhonda asked them about mining or oil drilling sites in Perfection City and the surrounding area because she received an unusual earth vibration signal from underground. But Earl said that no mining or oil is drilling around the city area because the area is a dead area. After that, they said goodbye to Rhonda and immediately left. When he arrived at the caravan, Val decided to wander out of town. He then persuaded Earl to come with him to leave the city and try their luck elsewhere. Earl agreed, and the two friends immediately packed their things into the car and prepared to leave. Just starting their journey, they saw someone who was on top of the power tower. Val recognized the person. He is Edgar, who is also a resident of Perfection City. They then stopped the car and tried to call Edgar for the man to come downstairs. They thought Edgar was drunk and climbed up there. But Edgar didn't seem to budge at all, despite being called many times. Unable to bear to leave their friend in the scorching heat, Val climbed up the electric tower to check on his condition. Val was shocked after finding out that Edgar, who was still holding his gun, was dead. They then unloaded him from the power tower and headed straight back to town. After making a diagnosis, Dr. Jim revealed that Edgar died of severe dehydration. It was likely that he had been at the top of the tower for 3 or 4 days, and for some reason, he was too afraid to go down. Not feeling strange about the cause of their friend's death, Val and Earl returned to continue their journey to the city of Bixby. However, not long after they drove, they again found an oddity when passing the farm of one of the townspeople named Fred. The two friends were very surprised to see the situation on Fred's farm, which had been devastated, and all his livestock had been slaughtered. They then looked for the whereabouts of Fred, but Fred was nowhere to be found, until finally, Val found a hat lying on the ground. Out of curiosity, he picked up the hat. Suddenly, they jumped in surprise after finding out that Fred's body was buried in a very pathetic condition. Val and Earl immediately panicked and returned to the city to warn the residents of the danger lurking in their city. They thought that a serial killer was roaming their city. They met two construction workers who were doing their work by the roadside. The two then warned the construction workers that there was a cold-blooded killer on the loose in the area and advised them to immediately flee to a safe place. But their warnings didn't seem to be heeded by the workers, and they continued to drill the road. After they left, one of the workers who was drilling the ground was suddenly startled by the appearance of a blood-colored liquid from the drill he was doing. After that, he was pulled by something very quickly and finally disappeared behind the rocky hill. Meanwhile, Val and Earl, who had arrived back in the City of Perfection, entered a shop owned by their friend named Walter. Val then uses the phone to report the terrible incident that happened to Fred. However, the telephone line turned out to be disconnected. They then had no other choice but to leave the city to seek help to the nearest town. But again, their journey was hit by obstacles because the only access road to and from the City of Perfection had been covered in large stone ruins, right at the location of the construction workers who had been drilling the road. Val and Earl then got out of the car to check the situation and look for the whereabouts of the workers. But they found no one there and only found the helmet used by one of the workers covered in blood. Seeing this, they ran scared and got into the car. While reversing his car, Val accidentally crashes into a sandbar. He tried to start the car, but it didn't move an inch, as if something big was holding their car. After trying several times, Val finally managed to get his vehicle up and drove back to town. Arriving in the city, they just realized that something was stuck under their car. Their friend, Bert, immediately approached and checked the object and assumed it was a body part of a giant snake. After hearing Bert's explanation, Val, Earl, and the rest of the townspeople fell silent and looked very scared of the danger threatening the safety of the entire town of Perfection. At night, Dr. Jim and his wife are enjoying the moment alone under the star-studded night sky. Suddenly the electricity in their caravan went out, causing it to become pitch black. Jim then went to check on his electric generator. But the generator had disappeared from its place as if buried in the ground. Jim and his wife were very surprised that such a large generator could be buried in the ground. Then suddenly the electric generator exploded from the ground. They were frightened and immediately left from there. but a giant monster caught Jim and pulled him to the ground. Jim's wife then tried to save herself by getting into the car. Unfortunately, she accidentally turned on the radio with a very loud volume, and immediately her car was swallowed into the ground. Meanwhile, in town, Val and Earl hold a meeting with the residents to think of another way to get out of Perfection Town because a rock avalanche has blocked the only access road. They also do not have a vehicle that can pass through the steep rocky hills of the desert. One of the residents, named Miguel, suggested that Val and Earl ride horses to go to the next town. The next morning, Val and Earl headed straight for Bixby, which was the nearest town. Since their route was in line with Dr. Jim's house, they decided to stop by and check on them. But when they got there, they couldn't find Dr. Jim and his wife anywhere. Val then heard the radio sound and tried to find the source of the sound. It turned out that the radio sound came from Dr. Jim's car, which had been buried in the ground. They then rushed away from that place. On the way, the horses that Val and Earl were riding looked stressed and frightened, as if something was threatening their lives. They had a hard time taming their horses and ended up falling to the ground. Not long after, a terrible monster that had been terrorizing the townspeople for so long came out of the ground and devoured their horses. Val swiftly shot the monster. Suddenly, the ground split into two, and the giant monster revealed its true form. Without thinking, they immediately fled with all their might from the monster. Val has a brilliant idea. They purposely ran into the canal, which was made of concrete, and jumped into it. As they expected, the giant creature immediately met its end because it crashed into a thick concrete wall. They managed to survive. The two men were then surprised by the appearance of Rhonda, who was researching the area. Rhonda then examined the corpse of the giant monster that was chasing them. She concluded that these giant monsters had no eyes, and they hunted by sound. Val and Earl felt proud because they had killed the giant monster that had been terrorizing the townspeople. But Rhonda then showed the results of tests of earthquake sensors that she planted in various locations showed 4 unusual earth tremor activities underground. That means there are still 3 giant monsters alive. Val, Earl, and Rhonda headed back to the city as quickly as possible. But the monsters followed them. One of the monsters is attracted by the sound of Mindy's game and tries to attack the girl, but Val manages to save her. Val and the others then enter Walter's shop. They called on all citizens not to make any noise that could attract the attention of the giant monster. But suddenly, Walter's vending machine made a very loud sound. Instantly, the giant monster emerged from the ground and devoured him alive right in front of them. Val, Earl, and the rest of the townspeople who were still alive immediately went up to the house's roof to save themselves. Val then radioed Bert to ask for help to distract the giant monster. Bert's wife then starts the bullet cleaning machine to lure a giant monster into their home. Bert and his wife had prepared with dozens of guns and bullets to kill the giant monsters. They also managed to kill one giant monster. Val then looks for a way to evacuate the surviving townspeople from the rooftops. He decided to use his old tractor because it was quite heavy, and the monsters would have a hard time overthrowing it. After evacuating all the residents, they picked up Bert and his wife who were preparing weapons and bombs to kill the remaining monsters. But Val's plan didn't go as smoothly as he thought. The giant monsters had a hard time overthrowing the super heavy tractor, but they were smart enough to set a trap on the ground so that the tractor tipped over and everyone on it fell to the ground. Everyone immediately ran frantically towards the boulder and climbed onto it. Everyone looked desperate because they were trapped surrounded by giant monsters. But then the Earl got an idea to throw rocks at a certain location. Meanwhile, Bert begins to prepare his bombs and attaches them to ropes. When the monster appeared, he then threw his dynamite at the giant monster. Earl's plan was a success. One of the monsters ate the dynamite, and its body exploded into pieces. Now there is only one giant monster left. Val then took the initiative to do the same technique. He threw stones to lure the monsters out and then threw dynamite and pulled it slowly. Val was happy when the last giant monster swallowed his dynamite. But then the monster spouted back the dynamite at the rocks they were sheltering from. Suddenly, everyone immediately ran in all directions to save themselves from the explosion. Val, Earl, and Rhonda turned out to be running into a barren area that was quite far from the rocks. The 3 of them were also very careful not to make sounds and movements that could attract the attention of the giant monster. But the giant monster had already surrounded Val, Earl, and also Rhonda. Val holds dynamite and tries to kill the monster, but he didn't have a match. Rhonda was the one holding the lighter, but she was standing quite a distance from Val. Val then got an idea. He ran as fast as he could from the monster chase. Earl and Rhonda then followed Val and ran as fast as they could. Rhonda gave the lighter to Val, and he managed to light the dynamite. Val then threw the dynamite at the giant monster. Unfortunately, the direction of the throw was not quite right, so the dynamite exploded in vain. Val didn't run out of ideas. He realized that he was standing on the edge of a deep abyss. Earl and Rhonda had already fled to the other side as the gigantic monster drew closer to them. But Val was still standing there, waiting for the right moment before he finally jumped up, and the giant monster fell into the precipice and died instantly. The 4 giant monsters that terrorized the townspeople of perfection had died. The townspeople who are still surviving are returning to their respective lives. Val and Earl continue their plan to move to the city of Bixby, and the film ends.